boys and girls. Mrs. Davis here with Ari. I have decided that I wanted to create a YouTube channel where I could get on and read with you all because I really miss it. Um, Reading with you guys is my favorite part of my day, and I decided, well, I can still do that even when maybe we're not together. This year we've been reading Wayside School. Because my morning and my afternoon class were at different points in the book, I didn't want to read the book that we were reading before just because both classes were at different points in the book. So I ordered the sequel. If you don't know what sequel means, sequel is a book that comes after an original book. So today and in the following days, I am going to be reading Wayside School is Falling Down. And it is also 30 chapters because Wayside School is 30 stories, and there are 30 little stories about Wayside School within this book. Most of the characters are the same, and you will hear some familiar characters. We'll be reintroduced to some familiar faces, so I'm really excited to read it to you. I'm going to try to make maybe like 3 videos a week, and each video is me reading another chapter from the book. But before I get started, I did have some shout outs for some of you. I don't know how many of you will see this. However, I still wanted to get on and wish some of you a happy birthday because I'm not able to see you for your birthday. So the first birthday that we've missed is Natalie. Miss Natalie's birthday was on March 17th, so happy birthday, Natalie. Another birthday, which is tomorrow. Again, I'm not sure when you guys will see this. Today is Monday the 30th. But tomorrow is Miss Kella's birthday, so happy birthday, Kella. And finally, Adrian has a birthday on April Fool's Day, so happy birthday, Adrian. If you are allowed on YouTube, if you are allowed to comment, comment and tell those kiddos happy birthday. If not, just you can wish them happy birthday whenever you get to see them again, okay? So, we are going to begin Wayside School is Falling Down. Here's the cover, and I'm going to show it to you because something that happens in the first chapter is actually on the front cover of the book. If you want, you can pause this video and make a little bit of a prediction. What do you think is going to happen in chapter 1? Okay, we are going to read to find out. Chapter 1 is called A Package for Mrs. Jules. Louis, the yard teacher, frowned. The schoolyard was a mess. There were pencils and pieces of paper everywhere. How'd all this junk get here, he wondered. Well, I'm not going to pick it up. It wasn't his job to pick up garbage. He was just supposed to pass out the balls during recess and also make sure that the kids didn't argue. He sighed and then began to clean it up. He loved all the children at Wayside School. He didn't want them playing on a dirty playground. As he was picking up the pencils and pieces of paper, a large truck drove into the parking lot. It honked its horn twice and then twice more. Louis ran to the truck. Quiet, he whispered. Children are trying to learn in there, he pointed at the school. A short man stepped out of the truck. I have a package for somebody named Mrs. Jules, he said. I'll take it, said Louis. Are you Mrs. Jules? Asked the man. No, said Louis. I have to give it to Mrs. Jules, said the man. Louis thought a moment. He didn't want the man disturbing the children. He knew how much they hated to be interrupted when they were working. I'm Mrs. Jules, he said. But you just said you weren't Mrs. Jules, said the man. I changed my mind, said Louis. The man got the package out of the back of the truck and gave it to Louis. Here you go, Mrs. Jules, he said. Ah, Louis grunted. It was a very heavy package. The word fragile was printed on every side. He had to be careful not to drop it. Do you know what the word fragile means? I'll show you again. If you notice, the package has tape on it that says fragile. Fragile means that something is very breakable. So for example, if you see a box that has tape that says fragile on it, you want to be very careful with the box. You don't want to drop it, shake it, anything like that, because whatever's in the box is very breakable. The package was so big, Louis couldn't see where he was going. Fortunately, he knew the way to Mrs. Jewell's class by heart. It was straight up. Wayside School was 30 stories high with only one room on each story. Mrs. Jewell's class was at the very top. It was Louis's favorite class. He pushed through the door to the school and then started up the stairs. There was no elevator. There were stairs that led down to the basement too, but nobody ever went down there. There were dead rats living in the basement. Do you remember hearing about dead rats in our first book? The box was pressed against Louis's face, squishing his nose. Even so, when he reached the 15th floor, he could smell Miss Mush cooking in the cafeteria. He huffed and he groaned and continued up the stairs. His arms and legs were very sore, but he didn't want to rest. This package might be important, he thought. I have to get it to Mrs. Jewell's right away. He stepped easily from the 18th story to the 20th story. Do you all remember why? There was no 19th story. Miss Zarves taught on the 19th story. There was no Miss Zarves. At last he struggled up the final step to the 30th story. He knocked on Mrs. Jewell's door with his head. Mrs. Jewell was in the middle of teaching her class about gravity when she heard the knock. "Come in," she called. "I can't open the door," Louis gasped. "My hands are full. I have a package for you." Mrs. Jewell faced the class. "Who wants to open the door for Louis?" she asked. All the children raised their hands. They loved to be interrupted when they were working. "Oh dear, how shall I choose?" asked Mrs. Jewell. "I have to be fair about this. I know. We'll have a spelling bee, and the winner will get to open the door." Louis knocked his head against the door again. "It's heavy," he complained, "and I'm very tired." "Just a second," Mrs. Jewell called back. "Allison, the first word's for you. Heavy." "Heavy," said Allison. Heavy. "Very good. Jason, you're next." "Tired." "Tired," Jason said. Sleepy. Louis felt the package slipping from his sweaty fingers. He shifted his weight to get a better grip. The corners of the box dug into the sides of his arms. He felt his hands go numb. Well, he couldn't feel his hands go numb. "Ginny, spell package." "Package," said Ginny. Box. "Excellent," said Mrs. Jewell. Louis felt like he was going to faint. At last, John opened the door. "I won the spelling bee, Louis," he said. "Very good, John," muttered Louis. "Aren't you going to shake my hand?" asked John. Louis shifted the box to one arm, quickly shook John's hand, then grabbed the box again, and staggered into the room. "Where do you want it, Mrs. Jewell?" he asked. "I don't know. What is it?" "I don't know," said Louis. "I'll have to put it down someplace so you can open it." "But how can I tell you where to put it if I don't know what it is?" said Mrs. Jewell. "You might put it in the wrong place." So Louis held the box as Mrs. Jewell stood on a chair next to him and tore open the top. His legs wobbled beneath him. "It's a computer!" exclaimed Mrs. Jewell. Everybody booed. "What's the matter?" asked Louis. "I thought everyone loved computers." "We don't want it," said Louis. "We don't want it, Louis," said Eric Bacon. "Take it back, Jack," said Terrence. "Get that piece of junk out of here," said Mauricia. "Now, don't be that way," said Mrs. Jewell. "The computer will help us learn. It's a lot quicker than pencil and paper." "But the quicker we learn, the more work we have to do," complained Todd. "You may set it over there on the counter, Louis," said Mrs. Jewell. Louis set the counter on the computer. I just mixed up my words. I better go back and reread that. Louis set the computer on the counter next to Sherry's desk. Then he collapsed on the floor. "Now, watch closely," said Mrs. Jules. Everyone gathered around the new computer. Then Mrs. Jules pushed it out the window. They all watched it fall and smash against the sidewalk. "See," said Mrs. Jules, "that's gravity." "Oh, now I get it," said Joe. "Thank you, Louis," said Mrs. Jules. "I've been trying to teach them about gravity all morning. We had been using pencils and paper." But the computer was a lot quicker. And that was chapter 1. Chapter 2 is called Mark Miller, and there is Mr. Mark Miller. So we will read about him the next time that I record my video. If you are watching, and if you're allowed to comment, it's up to your parents. But if you are allowed to comment, I would love for you to tell me what your favorite part of chapter 1 was. I have a favorite part, but I don't want to share it yet. Maybe I will comment and tell you guys what my favorite part was. But yeah, like I said, I miss you guys. I love you guys. Keep working hard at home. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And I cannot wait until I can see you all again. Bye.